Want to thank everyone who came, everyone who has shared their stories, is going to share their stories. Okay, I am one of the co-hosts of this event. I lost my partner Riley on May 5th of this year. I wanted to be a part of bringing this event to Airdrie because of this experience. I firmly believe that a city with a population of almost 70,000 people needs to have more resources for individuals who are experiencing addiction in their lives, whether for themselves, their families, or friends. Riley was extremely smart, above average IQ, and loved words the most. He truly was my walking Google. He wrote short stories from around the age of 8 and started writing hip-hop songs at age 12, using the rap name QB, and then Derailed, and lastly, McKnight. He was extremely talented, spending most of his spare time writing and coming up with new songs. He became well respected in the hip-hop scene. He was part of a hip-hop group called Green Children, along with 2 of his best friends, Invectrum, or Adam, and Mentality, or Devin. Riley had this way of making everyone else feel included, loved, and cared for. He made sure that everyone he came into contact with felt connected, heard, and seen. He was so funny. Even when he wasn't, his laugh made it funny. He helped me believe in myself and to look at myself with pride. He was the only man to ever make me feel truly beautiful and safe. He was constantly telling me how beautiful I was, or how proud he was of me. I was his inspiration, and he was mine. No matter what I wanted to do, even if he thought it was the dumbest thing ever, he would do it just to make me happy, such as going on our ugly dressed date day, which included him having to wear a sweater vest, which is not something that he would ever wear. He had a great work ethic and really wanted to go to university. He truly was wonderful. And yet, Riley struggled with substance use from a young age. He started using around the age of 12, smoking cigarettes, cannabis, and drinking alcohol. His reasons were many: to cope with the pain of his childhood, to fit in, to feel included, to be more social, and to help him sleep. He just didn't feel like the sober him was good enough. He loved animals, earth, space and time, paranormal activity, which he would never admit to, murder documentaries, and most of all, being a dad. Being a dad was something he wanted for so long, and when it happened, his outlook on life began to change. But, as everyone knows, change takes time. He tried and tried to get sober, but many times he was met with barriers. He would try to go to treatment, and they would tell him, "You must remain sober for 8 days before you can enter, and if you fail, we will not accept you." So he would try detox. He would go and be turned away because of reason number 1. So he would go again on day 2 and be turned away for reason number 2. He would then go again on day 3 and be told, "You're not high enough, so we will not accept you." So of course, he would go out and use substances so that he could make it the full 8 days before treatment. Now some may ask, why couldn't he just stay sober for the 8 days? He already had 3. All I can say is that unless you have been through it yourself, you just can't understand how truly hard it can be. Riley also tried a few different treatment centers. One that was abstinent-based, one that had a harm reduction approach, and one that was solely focused on the 12 steps. Treatment centers that are typically covered through the government are only about 28 days max. That's 3 weeks out of, let's say, 10 years of substance use. When they get there, of course, most of them do well. They have 24/7 care from doctors, nurses, counselors, and peer support. They have structured days and meals are prepared for them. They, for the most part, don't have access to their phones or social media, and they are taken away from all or most of their triggers. Once they graduate, they are released back to wherever they came from. In Riley's case, he was given a binder that he helped put together with information on possible triggers, fears, coping mechanisms, and phone numbers. He was, like many others, expected to set up the other resources himself once he got home. Setting up appointments typically meant making a phone call and leaving a voicemail, then waiting for someone to get in touch with him, then waiting again for a counseling session to be booked. He also had to set up his weekly group meetings and then tell his employer that although he was back to work, he needed to take off additionally another 2.5 hours off every Thursday. Luckily for him, his employer was incredibly helpful and adaptable to his needs. What all this amounted to in the end, after leaving the 24/7 care of the treatment center, was one group meeting once a week on Zoom for 2.5 hours, and one meeting for 30 minutes with an addictions counselor who wouldn't talk to him about the trauma that led to his addiction. Don't get me wrong, through all of this, Riley did really well for the most part. He tried his absolute hardest to stay healthy, to be there for me and our boys. However, his past traumas and our own unresolved conflicts slowly crept back in and pushed him toward the only thing he knew actually made him feel better. On May 5th, the day that he used, I spoke to him at 10:53. He reached out to an organization in Airdrie at 11:15, and he got a phone call back from them by 11:58, and he didn't answer. I made it to his house by 1:30 because he was not answering my calls. I waited there until 3:30, when finally the police came out of his house and told me that he was deceased. They wouldn't let me see him. They wouldn't let me hug him. They wouldn't let me kiss him and tell him goodbye. Using substances doesn't mean that you are bad or weak or have no moral compass. If anything, at least for Riley, it showed that he was hurting and that the supports that he had in place were not enough. That he was tired of fighting within a system that really didn't seem to care. Riley was important. He was worth it. He had purpose and he was deserving of life. We miss you more and more each day, and we love you beyond death. Your life will not go unnoticed and your death will not be in vain. I will do my very best to ensure that your story will be someone else's survival guide, as you hoped it would be. His strength, courage, and bravery throughout everything he faced in his life is something I truly hope our children gain from him, because he never gave up, even on his last day. We love you, Riley, aka Nick Knight.